Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by Giant Mess. That's me, the real cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and mediocre middle relief pitcher with a film and media studies degree. And now I'm a single dad who loves to talk about Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, television shows, and comedy. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about one hell of a miraculous, surprising, gritty, tough, dominant win for Big Blue over the Seattle Seahawks. Those Seahawks from Seattle that have given us such a hard time over the years, going into hostile territory where the 12th man reigns supreme and coming away with a win, a dub that we normally don't typically win. Are things changing? Have I gone flip mode squad on y'all in terms of what to expect for this season? So we'll recap that game, and then we'll take a look ahead, a very premature preview of the Sunday night football game against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is underperforming record-wise and unpredictable, to say the least. What kind of Bengals team are we going to get? They're hungry for a win. They need a win if they want to have any hopes of contending for the playoffs. So they're hungry. And what are we going to do about that hunger? So without further ado, let us get it started up in here. Whew. All right. So apologies right out the gate. My major in college was apology. So I'm pretty decent at this. Although if you ask my ex-wife, she would probably say, no, you ain't got it, homie. But I need to apologize because I was so butthurt after that Cowboys game and that loss, that another game that I think we should have won, where we outperformed the other team and yet we come out in the loss column. I did a very haphazard preview. I didn't do much research. I didn't look into it. I just saw the record, 3-0. They're on the tops of the NFC West, one of the harder divisions in football. You got the Rams, you got the Niners, you even got the Cardinals, the scrappy-ass Cardinals. And I thought 3-0 in the league's, one of the league's toughest divisions. New coach, but the defense looks like it's pretty top-notch from the numbers that I did provide you in the preview, with an offense that has the ability to put up some numbers. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet. So it just seemed like I thought we were going to get smoked, especially with the possibility that Malik Neighbors would not play due to not clearing concussion protocol. I didn't cover it in the preview because it wasn't a thing during the preview on Friday before the Seahawks even played the Lions. On Monday, with Devin Singletary having a groin injury and not being available, being doubtful. So going in without our top playmaker, arguably our top two playmakers, the two guys that have been able to score touchdowns for us so far in the season, being without them, knowing Daniel Jones' history against Seattle, knowing that we just, as a franchise, are pretty doo-doo butter when it comes to playing out there in the great state of Washington. I thought we were going to get smoked. I thought we were going to get crushed. I thought this is where the wheels officially come off. You know, that we had fought hard over the past 3 weeks to get back a certain level of confidence, but that ultimately Seattle would come out and embarrass us like they have in so many years of past. And if you follow Big Blue VCR on Twitter, like I do, great follow, by the way, lots of clips from yesteryear. He does a pain week where he just, it's therapeutic, or it's supposed to be therapeutic and cathartic in a lot of ways. And that you kind of, it's in screenwriting, we call it a slam. It's basically where you just shove a pie of pain into your face, just head on, just take it full bore. And that is supposed to help process the feelings, and instead of avoiding it, you meet it head on, and it's supposed to help you get past it, right? He says that Seattle has been an underrated pain week house of horrors for the New York Giants for years. Giants' last loss of 1986, that 1986 season, we were 14-2, only had 2 losses, and one of them was against Seattle. It was in Seattle. We had a 30-28 loss in 1995 on Dalowiso's final field goal miss. Jay Feely had 3 missed field goals in the loss in 2005, a game that we ultimately, looking back, I mean, we did go 11-5 in 2005, but if you go to 12-4, then you don't have to play on the wild card against a scrappy Panthers team. Blowout losses in 2006, 2014, and 2022. We did have the win in the COVID year, but Seattle's not been kind to us. It's not been kind to a lot of opponents. So that was a major factor in my thinking, my very unresearched thinking. And then I saw this tweet, and it's like, hey, maybe you need to dig a little deeper in your previews. Even you come out and say it's premature. You need to tell the people about stuff like this because it matters. Don't just look at the record. So at the time, Seahawks were 3-0. They had faced Bo Nix in his first ever NFL career start and a 26-20 win. So they didn't exactly blow the doors off Denver. They then faced Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots in a nail-biter, 23-20 overtime win, a game they could have very easily lost. Patriots, I don't know what to say about the Patriots. Again, it looks like they have another top 5 defense and a bottom 5 offense. So it's like they come out and beat the Bengals in week 1, but then they lose to Tyler Huntley and the Dolphins this last week, like 15-10 or something like that. So Patriots, they'll be in games. Someone said they're the worst team in football, and I was like, I don't know about all that. Panthers might have might say, hold my beer. So then the Seahawks, they face Bo Nix, barely win. They face Jacoby Brissett, barely win. Then they face Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle in a 24-3 win over the Dolphins. This is, Tua goes down with a concussion. They come in and a pretty sure-handed win against the short-handed Dolphins. And then they go to Detroit. And you watch them in Detroit, and their offense is able to keep up for the most part, putting up a lot of big numbers. But the defense just is unable to stop Detroit. Jared Goff has like a career day, and they end up losing 42-29. After seeing that, and after reading what I just read to you, it's like my mind, it kind of does what it do with these New York Giants. It started to be like, I think I could very easily see us going in there and upsetting Seattle. But I could also see us outperforming them yet again and coming away with a loss. So the whole idea of a blowout loss, yeah, that's emotional, Neal. And that usually happens after we lose to the Cowboys. Somehow those losses hurt a little bit more than others. Especially this season when it's like, this is the sea change year. This is the year that it looks like we could have flipped the script and changed the narrative. And, this is the year that Dallas doesn't make the playoffs or stumbles or they look vulnerable and we can actually take a game from them, but nay. So, that kind of carried over into my preview for the Seahawks game. And, man, I mean, that thinking of we can outperform the other team and still lose, that was the thought for the entirety of this game until the last Seahawks drive. So again, no Neighbors, no Singletary, and we dominated pretty much in every category. 24 first downs, there are 17, 175 rushing yards, there are 102. I think 70 some odd of those rushing yards comes from us letting Geno scramble, which wasn't great and ultimately could have really ended up being the difference maker. It seemed like every scramble, we just didn't have a spy at all on him, and he just could go for 10 plus yards a clip. So luckily it doesn't come back to haunt us, but we got 7 sacks. Love to see it. Only allowed 3. Outgained them in net passing yards. 420 total yards. So they're 333. We do have the 2 fumbles. One coming on. It was like I tuned in right when Daniel Jones is trying to scramble when he didn't necessarily need to scramble. And Andrew Thomas trips him up, loses the ball. Luckily, Andrew Thomas is able to hop on it because that could have been, that was about as disastrous start as you can get. But we're used to disastrous starts with the Giants. You think I'd be used to it by now. And then, of course, the other fumble. Oh my God, we'll get to it. So turnover battles about even. We're only penalized twice, which is good to see. I think we've been able to manage to keep the penalties to a minimum, which is good. I think in pretty much all the games except for one, we've had less penalties than our opponent. 7 of 16 on third down conversions. I don't even know what I'm reading right now. Not used to that. Unaccustomed to seeing that. So doing a much better job of converting on third down. There were still a few throws that were short of the third down marker that are frustrating considering what we went through last week or the previous week with against Dallas. But good to see that we're stretching the field a little bit more, going a little bit deeper. Seahawks were only 3 of 11 on third down. We're both offers on fourth down, and we own time of possession 37 minutes at their 22. There was a stretch in that first half. That first half was, did wonders for my brain and for my emotional state. Average yards per play, 6. We had 6. They had 6. So it's good to see that we're starting to, slowly, incrementally improve in terms of average yards per play. No more of this shallow ass routes that you're not giving your target the opportunity to get some yak. Daniel Jones played his best game of the season. He's played his best game, some are saying, since the playoff win against Minnesota. That's an easy thing to say. 2023 was a complete and utter failure. In terms of his career, I think this is probably one of his best games, if not his best game. He did have, like I said, he did have the fumble, but plus 0.22 EPA, which is expected pass attempt per play, was in the 71st percentile. His plus 3 completed passes over expectancy, according to Next Gen Stats. 55% success rate, 5.0 average depth of target, 5.3 average depth of completion. Cool. 3.3 average air yards short of the sticks. So still not loving that, but 2 of 2 on attempts of 20 plus air yards. So that's the key stat, right? If he misses on Slayton down the right sideline, if he misses on Slayton on that touchdown, we're having a different discussion right now. If he completes those against Dallas, we're having a different discussion right now. It's like people criticized him and knocked him for not being able to throw the deep ball anymore. And he comes back and responds in a big way. So if that's the Daniel Jones that we can expect, and I think, we've seen him get better each and every week. Disaster start against Minnesota, decent performance against Washington, okay against Cleveland, good enough to win. Missed opportunities against Dallas, but still playing decent football. And then this is near flawless, I'd say. I don't think he had many bad throws. A lot of drop passes, which we'll talk about, and he ran the ball real hard. Well, first of all, passing wise, 109.6 QB rating. The QB rating has been 100, over 100 or near 100. Take out the final drive or 2 against Dallas. His QB rating was around 100, I think, and then it dropped to like 80 something, high 80s after the last 2 drives. So he's playing above average football. And I think if you ask a lot of fans, it's like, this is a product of a much improved offensive line, but also Brian Dable's play calling, right? We're able to see that given enough time to throw the ball and to make more than one read, and to the ability, the luxury that the offensive line provides in terms of longer developing plays, has benefited Daniel Jones tremendously. And that I mean, the knock is, well, and that's what was so frustrating about the Cowboys loss and the Commanders loss, was that we're getting exceptional play, from a number standpoint from Daniel Jones. It's like, he missed 2 or 3 throws that could have changed the game, but it's not like he's not costing us the game per se. He's not turning the ball over that much, or at all. And he's making fairly good decisions, and yet we're still losing. So I think that's what was so tough to swallow, was like, we're getting the kind of play that we were hoping Daniel would give us. And, honestly, if the defense makes a stop here or there, we could be sitting here at 4-1. And we're not talking about Daniel Jones. We're moving on from Daniel Jones as much as we still are. I mean, we're still talking about, like, I'm still seeing it everywhere, is like, oh, can you just imagine what will happen when Dable gets his guy? It's just like, I'm a little pissed off by that kind of rhetoric and that kind of talk. I get pissed off every time I see like Cam Ward in a Giants jersey and Jalen Milroe in a Giants jersey. It's just like, they're going to be our savior. And it's just like, I've seen a lot of bad feedback about Cam Ward. And then Jalen Milroe goes out and loses to Vanderbilt as the 1 seed. So I still am on the fence. I mean, I think with the more of these kind of games he stacks up, the better you feel about going with him next year, knowing that he probably, unless he does something crazy this year, makes the playoffs and goes deep in the playoffs. I still don't know if, I think, what would it take for us to move on from Daniel after this year? It would have to take more of those games we saw against the Vikings than the games we've seen over the past 4 weeks. I mean, he has not played poorly in those games, but it's like he's not doing enough to win the game, right? And here he did. So 11 carries for 38 yards. Those look like my high school statistics. 3.45 yards a carry. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these designed runs. I'd like to see it where we're just not just gonna ask him to go into the teeth of the defense and take shot after shot after shot. Not a huge fan of that. Don't mind it once in a while, but when it's like that, I mean, of those 11 carries, I think the majority of them are like in between the tackles, or like right off the tackle. It's just like you're going into where there are big bodies and a lot of hard hitters, heavy hitters. And credit to him, he's a tough runner. There's no doubt about. I mean, that's the one I don't think I tweeted it, but I saw some other people tweet. It's like, we can knock Daniel Jones all we want, and there's a lot to knock, right? There's a lot there to criticize, but his toughness is not one of those things. Toughness is is his top trait, I'd say. And it's often to his own detriment. How many times have we seen him? There was a game in either 2020 or 2021 where he's near the goal line, he tries to put his head down and gets waffled and has to leave the game. So there are plenty of times where he's just not sliding, he's not getting down, he's taking hits and hits and hits and hits. I mean, he took a hit today. I was just like, oh my God, that's it. He's done. And then the defender is the one that's the slow one to get up. So he's a tough dude. There's no question about it. And but it's it's not sustainable by any means. I don't enjoy watching it. I mean, it's nice to see him run over a guy every once in a while, but for every time he's running over a guy, there are 4 or 5 times in that game alone where he's taking some really hard shots. So, it's hard. It's hard to see. And I think if we want to keep him on the field and keep him healthy and not have to pay this ridiculous injury clause that is in his contract for like 20 some odd $1 million, maybe just dial back those kind of designed runs and try to get him, more in like open space. There were a lot of quarterback draws right up the gut, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And he just can't get down. So maybe that's something that that's like the one thing they can work on this week with him is like, just get down, dude. Is the extra yard or two worth it when the risk of injury goes up so much, considering your injury history, my man? But yeah, Daniel Jones throwing the ball very accurate. Receivers not helping him out a ton, and it almost cost us the game. So we'll get to them, but we should get to Tyrone Tracy Jr. This is a rookie running back. I remember is his name Brandon Brown, assistant GM, was talking about his explosiveness, and we got to see his explosiveness in this game. 18 carries, 129 yards, average more than 7 yards a carry. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I saw our Giants running back have that. I mean, maybe like Tiki back in the day. His plus 47 rushing yards over expected is the second most of any New York Giants running back since Saquon Barkley last year, per Next Gen Stats. His 56% rushing yards over expected success rate is among the highest in the league. Plus 0.23 EPA rush, 44% EPA success rate, 7 carries of 5 yards or more. Per Next Gen Stats, he was expected to gain only 82 yards, but exceeded expectations on 61% of his carries. That's the 7th highest rushing yards over expected percent for any running back with 10 or more carries in a game this season. So, and, I'm not well versed in the run game, former quarterback. I like to focus on the aerial attack. But according to Bobby Skinner, Talking Giants, he was mentioning that the Giants got back to what is most successful for them, which is the duo and the gap runs. And more of this zone shit. And after coming off a game where the run game was pathetic against a very bad run defense, only 15 yards on 20 or 20 some odd yards on 15, it was 1.1 yards per carry. So they get back to what works for them, and it paid off big time. Tracy had some huge gaping holes to run through and made some guys miss and had some explosion on the next level. Looked good running the ball. I don't think a lot of people would have expected a game like this from him, because he was sold to us, the Giants fans, as like, here's a former wide receiver who's got good hands and can make people miss. So he'll be like a pass catching back, and we saw how good he looked against Dallas on that one screenplay. And we thought, okay, that's where he will contribute the most. And instead it's like, he's a pretty good runner too with the ball. So, that would be nice to see if, and now we have a running back controversy. Now people are calling for Devin Singletary to not be the starter anymore. Tracy is a starter after one game, which is kind of wild. Or at the very least, you give Tracy more touches so that it's a little more 50-50 with Tracy and Singletary. I don't know that Singletary has lost that much favor with me. I still like the way Singletary runs. I think maybe we just had the wrong game plan against Dallas. The fumbles are obviously a big concern with Singletary. Tracy did fumble on a kickoff, not this game, but in the Cleveland game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. I wouldn't be opposed to being like Singletary, the groin issue with a running back. Like, that's not, it's not like you can wrap it up in a cast and play with it like Tiki did when he broke his wrist. That seems like that's pretty important for a running back to be successful, is your groin. So I wouldn't mind giving Tracy another start against Cincinnati and having Singletary rest. And then when Singletary is fully healthy, You need a little mix and match action. Eric Gray, though, looked good on the screen pass, catch and run. I think they ran it 2 times in a row, and it worked both times, and he looked great on each play. I think they were both on the opening drive. We get down to the friggin' 1 foot line. We had driven the ball 94 yards. Screen passes, which I mean, I can't tell you how much that means to me in my life. I'm able to live to see the day when giant screen passes actually do something and are good and are a consistent part of the attack, the strategy, and we're able to execute. It's just like a godsend. Give the ball to the Eric Gray, short yardage situation. Every angle I've fucking seen of this replay indicates that he got in, touched the goal line, crossed the goal line before losing control. Every single angle. And I haven't seen a single person. I mean, they're all affiliated with the Giants, so, take that for what it's worth. But pretty much everyone to a T was like, that's a touchdown. He crosses the goal line, then loses the ball. That's a touchdown. So he coughs it up. No one sees it on the ground except Rashawn Jenkins from the Seahawks, and he takes it the distance, 101, 102 yards. And we're down 7-0, and you got to think, this is just that one play encapsulates this Giants season and the Dable Giants. It just seems like that's been the staple of Dable's Giants for the entirety of his tenure. With the exception of maybe not 2022, but even then, it would happen. Just like wacky, crazy shit. Second straight turnover 6 versus the Seahawks. Last year, we had the 100-yard pick 6. Daniel stares down. Devin Witherspoon picks it, takes it to the house, and then shits all over Daniel. The most Giants thing ever, which is what it feels like we say that every week. There's something that happens that is just like only happens to the Giants. With Malik Neighbors down. But I will say this, so before we get to the receiving crew, the fact that we had that happen, the defense goes out and still continues to play as well as they did. The offense response was a good sign. That being said, to go into the fucking half at 10-10, all tied up, drove everyone up a wall. I mean, that to me, yet again, is like we are dominating this game. How the fuck are we tied up? If you're Seattle, you're like, man, we didn't do shit for pretty much the entire first half, and we're tied. We're going to win this game because we just had to make, 1 or 2 plays, and then we've seen that they could hold us in check for 95%, 90% of the half, and we can still win. So, with Malik Neighbors down, Singletary out, Tracy steps up big time. Who's going to be the other guy? A lot of people thought Wan'Dale Robinson was going to be the guy that is going to get the bulk of the targets, and it makes sense considering he was the second highest in terms of targets for Giants receivers. And so, and myself included, I thought, this is where Jones is going to lean on Wan'Dale. We're going to see a lot of like 3-yard, 4-yard, 5-yard routes where he's throwing it short to Wan'Dale, and Wan'Dale maybe makes a move and breaks a tackle, but more times than not, he doesn't. And so we're going to see a lot of that short yardage bullshit. And we're going to be, even though it's successful, quote unquote, it's not really, I don't think that scares opposing defenses. They'll take that all fucking day. So that was the big concern. Then, everyone had written off Darius Slayton. He's completely lost in this offense. Daniel Jones no longer trusts him or can't connect with him on the deep ball. And he ends up hauling in 8 grabs, 122 yards on 11 targets and a touchdown. He did have a bad drop on 3rd down. That was like, oh boy, same old Darius Slayton. It's like, when that happens, I'm not at the point where I get angry with him. It's like I've come to accept it because I know that there's an upside to him. I guess there are some people that might compare him to Ruben Randall. And I'm like, yeah, but Ruben Randall was never, I would not say that. I don't think Ruben Randall was ever on Darius Slayton's level. You know, Ruben Randall was often criticized for running bad routes, a lot of drops. But I don't know that he had the same kind of explosiveness, the ability to get past defenders, to separate from defenders, a deep threat. Ruben Randall really wasn't ever that. So I disagree that he's, Ruben Randall 2.0. And we saw it in this game. The guy can be a threat. He has that wide receiver one type ceiling where he'll just ball out every once in a while. And you sit there and you go, where is this for the others, however many games that we don't get to see it. So, yes, he did have the bad drop on third down, but then he has, I think that same drive, he has a big catch on third down at the sticks, takes a big hit, gets sandwiched, and is able to get the first down. And like we said, he's finally able to connect on the deep ball, something that we have been asking for. And we now have the ability to dial that up. Last year, it's like we couldn't even get to that because we don't have enough time to throw it. Now we do have the line and we do have the opportunity to throw it. And we have thrown it. We just haven't connected. Now we are connecting on it. So the deep ball on the right sideline, perfect throw by Daniel. Maybe could have let him a little bit more, and maybe Darius catches on the fly and goes for a touchdown. Maybe, but it's just good to see he was able to connect on that, and he gets flagged for that violent gesture. This whole gun thing is out of control. It's out of control. He does, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that Darius Slayton, A, owns a gun, and B, would do that kind of celebration on the field. Like, just know your player, know your personnel. Darius Slayton would never do that. He's just not that kind of guy. And so he gets up and you saw the replay and he does the point, which literally I guess it's the CD Lamb point with the both like looking like a bow and arrow type thing. He has the thumbs up and the pointer finger and the middle finger's up and the other finger's down. So they do look like finger guns, I guess. But like literally, I mean, CeeDee Lamb comes to mind, and CeeDee Lamb ended up doing it in the Sunday Night Football game. Spoiler alert, no flag. But yet they call it on Slayton here. And it's just like, he's gesturing first down. And it's like, if he extends the ring finger and the pinky finger and does that with both hands, he's not getting called. But because he has those two fingers down on each hand and is pointing their guns, and who is he shooting at? I don't know. Like, it's like, what the fuck? So, I mean, it's getting out of control. And you, like El Jefe from New York Revival, he posts a picture of a referee doing pointing with his fingers like a gun to signal a penalty on a team. I understand some of the sellies have been a little like, oh, okay, like that. He's like Malik Neighbors obviously holding like what appears to be a rifle or a shotgun shooting at people. It's like, okay. I get trying to crack down on that. But Jesus, my God, they're getting a little too, and maybe this is like an edict passed down from the top. I mean, it is. And you see this in other years where they're trying to really enforce a new rule or something that they're trying to crack down on. They really are hyper aware and calling it every time in the beginning of the season to help mitigate or prevent teams from doing it in the future. But this is just like out of control. I mean, you're ultimately, you could be deciding games. Like he catches that ball down the right sideline. We're in Seahawks territory. I believe we're in field goal range. That's then a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty taking us out of field goal range. It's just absurd. So yet again, referees, making or not making calls that could have, I mean, if we lose this game, yeah, the fumble, that's a touchdown. That's 7 points that we lose that go in there. It's a 14-point swing. And then that could have been a field goal on that drive. You're taking away 3 points or possibly 7 points. So it's like, yeah, this shit matters, man. This isn't like some bullshit call and a blowout or whatever. This is a close game that we need. And yet again, the referees are making big calls on big plays. And I don't think anything's being done about it. That's what's so crazy and so frustrating is like nothing's being done about it. But 73.3% of the Giants' air yards went to Darius Slayton, the fourth largest share for any NFL receiver this season, the third largest of Slayton's career, and the fourth highest by a Giants receiver since 2016. Love to see that. I love to air it out, my guy. I'm like so over Air Coryell and West Coast offense bullshit where it's just like we're gonna it's 5 yards here and 6 yards here. It's just so nice. I mean, like the play call on the Slayton touchdown where we motion Wandale to the right. We see that it's man coverage because he has a trailer and fake run left, half boot right. You have I think Runyon comes back and helps the running back on the pass rusher on the left on Daniel's blind side. Daniel, slow boot right, pass back left, perfectly placed. Slayton doesn't have to slow down and then high point it. He hits him in stride, touchdown. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the Wandale Robinson touchdown as well. Beautiful play call. The play calling has gotten better each week as well. So, I think we all were very, very, very down on Brian Daboll after that Vikings game. I was like, this is the play calling that we wanted and we were asking for and clamoring for. And this is what we got. This is the big difference, the Daboll difference. But yet every week we're seeing it get better and better and better. Now, there were still some play calls where you just scratch your head and you go, I don't know what he was thinking there. And I assume if I watched the All 22, which I don't and I haven't, but maybe I should, that we would see like, oh, this is what he was going for. It's just a lack of execution like normal. But there are a few downs there in the red zone where we come with a field goal that you're like, I would have liked better play calls there. I mean, and this is, again, well, we'll get to it. So Wandale has 9 targets, 6 catches, 36 yards, and the touchdown. That, where we're, again, the focus, all the motion and whatnot that we're presenting to the defense suggests that we're going right, and then we're able to leak Wandale back to the left, and Daniel's able to hit him as he's going full speed across the field. That is, to me, the best usage and the way to use Wandale Robinson is to get him full sprint, running away from his defender, catch it on the fly, and he's going to beat his guy to the first down marker or to the end zone. So love that play call. Both of the passing touchdowns were beautiful play calls, expertly executed. But yeah, Wandale had a drop. And again, 6 catches, 36 yards. I think opposing defensive coordinators, minus the touchdown, would take that in a heartbeat. Let him catch the ball 6, 7, 8, 9 times for 40 yards, 50 yards, especially when it's short of the sticks, because 9 times out of 10, I don't know that Wandale is going to be able to shake the defender and get that extra, what appears to be like 3 or 4 or more yards on the third down. It's just not going to happen. It's not highly likely. So still seeing some of that, but not a lot. He did have the bad drop on the third down conversion that would have really helped stave off the Seahawks comeback. Hit him right in the numbers and he dropped it. So that's not good to see. We're still dropping too many passes. Bob Papa, I was just listening to Bob Papa on the Believe podcast with Carl Banks, and he said that we lead the NFL in drop passes. Don't know if that's true, but it kind of feels like it. We're seeing multiple drops per game. And whereas, in previous weeks, I think we could have put part of the onus on Daniel for not placing the ball in the right position. This week, it was like, he was spot on. Every throw was just about spot on. So got to figure out a way to come up with it. And then Theo Johnson, 5 catches on 5 targets, 48 yards. We ran a flea flicker that resulted in a tight end screen. And I loved it. I love that, and I love that that's built in. It's like, hey, look deep, and if it, most times you run a flea flicker, it's like if the home run shot's not there, you're probably not going to find anything else. You got to throw it away, and it's always kind of like a downer. The fact that there is this built-in tight end screen is such a next level thought that, like, okay, you look for the home run. If it's not there, you can dump it down. I think a lot of defenses would be like, oh, snap. They immediately sprint back because they're like, we've been duped, bamboozled, hornswoggled. So they immediately turn sprint as far back as they can go. And that opens up everything that's way underneath. And we did that with Theo Johnson, and he got a big gainer there. So that was cool to see. I love that. I just love that we're throwing the tight end. And that's the right amount of usage for that tight end. 5 targets. Every game should get 5 targets and around 40 to 50 yards. That's like, I love that. That's beautiful. So hopefully we can see more of that. And it sucks it took Neighbors to be out for us to explore this, or at least for, did that force Dable to call the game differently so that we're not scheming to get ball to Neighbors all the time? It forces Daniel to look at his options more. So, like, you can't just go to Neighbors all the time. You can't just check down to Wandale. So I think this was a critical, important step. And now you have to think about, okay, once we get Neighbors back, let's not default and go back to, we're going to just, force feed Neighbors. We're going to design and scheme just for Neighbors. Let's think about, how do we get Theo the ball 5 times? How do we get Wandale or Darius Slayton the ball more than 5 times, right? There are only so many pass attempts in a game. I get it. But you have to feel much better about our passing game than you had in the past. I mean, since Daniel's rookie year, really, is the last time we saw our passing game really take off. 2022, we were successful, but it was not predicated on the pass attack by any means. It was Daniel and Saquon running the ball and then working off of that. Whereas in 2019, Shermer was the success was based on passing the ball down the field, which we saw at the tail end of 2018 with Eli. So would love that, man. If this passing offense can continue to produce at this kind of rate, and if we eliminate the drops, then you got to feel really good about this team. So Jalen Hyatt, with Neighbors down, Jalen Hyatt gets more higher snap count, was on the field for 32 of 39 first half snaps and did not have a target. So it's unfortunate to see because, like Slayton, he's had games, like the game against the Patriots last year where he goes 6 catches, 109 yards. So he has that potential, but still can't find a way. I mean, I think Carl Banks was saying that there were a couple of holding penalties against Hyatt. So I do still think that teams are rightfully so worried about him getting deep and past them. So there's still that threat. And if he can continue to do that, that's valuable. It's just it'd be nice to see a couple of snags along the way. In my head, the ideal, perfect, utopian Giants offense is like you get a deep shot completed to Hyatt once per game with a deep mid crosser once per game. So usually like his like Hyatt 2 catches, 40 some odd yards. And then, Slayton, 4 catches, 80 yards. You that's what I would love to see. As much as it's fun watching Neighbors beast mode and do double-digit catches for 100 plus yards. Oh, I mean, we've said it, and I know I sound like a hypocrite from week 1 to now, because week 1 I was like, just force feed him. But at the same time, I don't know if that's really, can you do that for 16, 17 games a season? I don't know. Very few people can, but if anyone could, I guess it's Neighbors. So, that opening drive, 16 plays, more than 10 minutes, and we fumble. Woof. It harkens back to that drive against the Steelers in 2020 where we I mean, like, as much as I love those drives from like the Giants offenses of the late 80s, so like 89 and 90 where we had OJ Anderson, And it was like, we're just going to pound the rock and we're going to wear teams down. Long drives, lots of plays, crucial third down conversions. And then we get in the end zone. We just don't see that anymore from the Giants offenses. It's always like lots of plays, long drives, field goal or turnover. But 11 plays, 60 yards, almost 6 minutes off the clock, field goal. 12 plays, 58 yards, 5 minutes off the clock, field goal. So there's still some things we should clean up, but we did score on 6 of 10 drives, not counting the 2 kneel downs at the end of the half in the game. Only 3 and outs. Not too bad. Of course, you'd like to see when we are up, what was it, 23-20. That's when the panic starts to set in. Then you have a 3 and out. You're like, get the ball on Seattle's 27. We can only get a field goal. Just, that one hurt the most, I think, because that's like you got to score a touchdown there and put the game away. So this was probably the most complete game we've seen from the offense in terms of a full 60 minutes. The first half against the Browns, we looked awesome, but then second half kind of just shut down. Commanders, it was like we didn't punt a lot, but we just couldn't put it away. This one, we almost put it away. So I feel like this is the best game that the offense has given us. And yet, 21 points. So, or 23 points. So they're not that far off. Ugh, we're not that far off. So that was the Giants offense. And then look at the defense. Tyler Nubin led the team in tackles, had a nice tackle for loss. Been having a pretty solid season. Tied for third on the team in tackles, forced fumble, only surrendering 50% completion rate in coverage, played 100% of the snaps, 68.9 grade, highest among rookie safeties, and no missed tackles. So, and a lot of people saying this was one of the better drafts, if not the best draft that Joe Schoen has had. We got Drew Phillips back. He had a huge pass breakup on a third down. Theo Johnson, obviously a great game. Tyrone Tracy, obviously a great game. So, I'd have to agree that this draft class, coming around pretty nicely. Deonte Banks, man, I was very critical of him. A lot of people were pretty down on him after the game against the Cowboys, where he just looked like he wasn't all there, wasn't with it, mentally. And physically is unable to break up a pass, defend a pass. And then he comes back and responds big time. I guess he got called out by Jerome Henderson, the DB's coach, during the week. Ends up with a forced fumble on DK, which was huge. Stopped a Seahawks drive that would have resulted in points. And then 3 passes defended. 3. Whoa. So, per Next Gen Stats, he lined up opposite DK Metcalf on 35 of his 47 routes, which is about 75% of the time, and limited him to 2 catches and 4 targets for 24 yards. That is CB1 material. Just do that every week. we'll be happy like a pig in shit. Metcalf faced off coverage on 89% of his routes, third highest mark in a game in Metcalf's career. Which, I don't know that you want to be press against a guy like that. I think you'd want to play off on a guy like him and then just, come up and make the play. Free release is fine as long as, you have that guy over the top. You're bracketing him. Coming into the game, DK was 4th in the league in receiving yards at 366. Banks had a 91.6 coverage grade and an 89.9 overall grade from Pro Football Focus. He's the first Giant since Terrell Thomas in a 2010 game against Jacksonville with 3 or more passes defended and a forced fumble in the game. And came back, bounced back, and was huge. Are you going to get that every game? No, but I'd rather let's have the trend go towards that and not so much what we saw in the first 4 weeks. Because I saw, despite, it wasn't atrocious by any means, but we're seeing guys score on him which is what we did not see for the most part in 2023, his rookie season. So it's like, is he regressing? What's going on? So whatever Jerome said to him clicked. And if we can get not necessarily that level of play, but something close to that, this defense is going to hum and going to roll. DJ Davidson with 2 sacks? What? Dexter Lawrence with 3 sacks? He was an absolute problem for Seattle's offense. Nacho had a pass defended and half a sack. Brian Burns had 2 passes defended. He had that huge sack on 4th and 1. Big Blue VCR said, thankfully, the Spider-Man web shooter isn't a violent celebration. It's just like, that's how ridiculous it's gotten. But, and a lot of people who know ball are saying that Brian Burns is not playing as poorly as fans would think. But it does, I think if you want the fans to back you and to really feel positive about you and support you to the fullest extent, you need kind of games like this where you're getting on the stat sheet and you have a line like that. You're making a big play in a big spot. You can play solid, average, decent, good football and not show up in the stat sheet, and people are going to be like, you're invisible and you're invincible. And to a certain extent, it's like, that's why you're getting the big money. It's like, you don't get the big money for just, doing the things that you're expected to do, right? You have to go above and beyond. And so it looks like he's starting to do that. Micah McFadden only had 2 tackles. I'm sure he'll have like a 90.4 PFF grade or whatever. Just where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Okereke was fairly quiet, only 3 tackles. Kayvon did have half a sack and, being a little more disruptive, which is good to see. The Giants currently lead the NFL with 22 sacks. ¿Qué es esto? It's the 3rd most sacks through 5 games over the last 15 seasons per ESPN stats and info. Whoa, dude. So as much as I thought that we would take a step back, in 2024, where Shane Bowen is known for his run defense, doesn't blitz as much as Wink, thinks that his front 4 can apply the pressure and doesn't need to bring any additional pressure. The 22 sacks in 5 games, that's big time. We had 34 sacks all of last year. So, apologies to Shane Bowen. Apologies to you for my shitty preview, for not looking into this a little bit further. Apologies to Brian Dable for righting the ship and getting better play calling, and at least what looked like a full 360-degree effort, which that kind of filters back up to the head coach. So that's a point in his favor. So, Daniel Jones maybe gets an apology from a lot of people from being able to throw the deep ball accurately. A lot of people are getting apologies this week. It's the apology tour. Let's kick it off. Kick it off strong. Seahawks only had 3 drives of more than 6 plays. So a Shane Bowen defense is getting off the field, which they couldn't do against the Commanders. Only 1 drive went more than 50 yards for the Seahawks, and only 1 drive lasted more than 4 minutes for the Seahawks. So just a really great effort from the defense. The only knock on them is that we did allow Geno to scramble and pick up huge chunk yards. And go figure, Geno Smith, a notorious flat earther, slides short of the first down on a 3rd down. Never change, Geno, never change. It's stuff like that, and I know it's such a nitpicky thing, but like it's stuff like that that makes me think that guy is never going to the Super Bowl and is never going to win the Super Bowl. Just little stuff like that. And I'm sure that's unfair. And if you're a Seahawks fan, yeah, you can say that's unfair. And I agree with you. But it is what it is. That's just my thought process, is like, as good as he can look, as good as he has looked over the past few years, 2 or 3 years, he'll still make decisions like that, and he'll still do stuff that it's just like, nope. I don't think he's ever going to get over that hump. Now, that being said, Tyler Lockett can still gash us. My God. He can come up with big reception after big reception. 4 of 6 receiving on targets, 75 yards. But we shut down the run game. And that's been an issue for us. So like against a pretty Seattle's pretty well known for their ground game, and to be able to bottle up Kenneth Walker is huge, and Charbonnet. Metcalf, DK didn't really hurt us too much. And the tight ends, for once, Seahawks tight ends didn't do anything against us. I feel like they've been a problem for us as well. And then special teams. I mean, I didn't see a lot of love for Greg Joseph on my timeline, but hot damn, man. 2 of 2 on extra points, 3 of 3 on field goals. After going 5 of 5 on field goals last week, 8 of his last 8. So, I'm sure. Did he have a miss against? I think he might have had a miss against Washington or Cleveland, but for the most part, pretty solid, fairly dependable. I don't know if he's at the exact same level as Graham Gano, Mr. Automatic, but coming from a place where we were dealing with Randy Bullock and Shane Gillen, the Scottish Hammer kicking field goals, he's been pretty steady and dependable. Jason Myers missed a field goal. It was a pretty big miss. Not sure if he caught it. It was a blocked field goal. What a time for us to step up our special teams, which has been much maligned over the past few years. We're bringing a new special teams guy to correct everything and to get us back to a somewhat respectable unit on special teams. And special teams, I mean, there hasn't been a really big knock on them. I think there was a stretch there last season, the year before, it was like, man, this squad, brutal. But our Gobi is his nickname, new hire, comes to Dable early in the week and says, hey, I think I got something here. I'm watching some tape, and I think we got a play that we should roll out. And it features our guy, Isaiah Simmons, who didn't see a single goddamn snap on defense today. And yet, from all accounts, was on the sideline practicing this. So that we didn't show it on any of the extra points or field goals prior to this. And this is where, I think I was like, when I saw the Seahawks driving, I'm like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. We let them drive at the end of the half. They tie the game on a bullshit drive to tie the game after we had dominated all game. And now I'm going to have to watch this fucking Seahawks team tie this game that they have no right to be in. 23-23, they're going to tie it on Myers' field goal. We're going to go in overtime. And my God, I think we're going to fucking lose this game. Just like we lost the Dallas game, just like we lost the Washington game, games that we should have won handedly. We're going to lose because we didn't put a team away and we missed our opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the time. And it's like, this is the time. So Simmons trots on the field. Simmons, who hadn't played a defensive snap all game, who has been underutilized all season, after we were told that he's going to be like the weapon X on defense. He's going to be the deciding factor. He's the guy that he's now in the right system. Bowen knows how to use him. We're going to unleash him. And he's just not getting snaps. Didn't get any snaps. And he's over on the sideline practicing his get off. That is such a little thing. But for me, that indicates that Shane Bowen and Brian Dable do have the respect of the clubhouse. They have not lost the locker room. You are 1-3 going into without your top 2 playmakers on offense. Criticized left and right for how you handled the games against Dallas and Washington. And you come in and you have a guy that you are telling you're not going to play today on defense. You're not going to see any snaps. And that guy is then practicing how he's going to get up and get over and get a blocked field goal. A former first-round pick that we all wanted in 2020 over Andrew Thomas. We trade him for a 7th-round pick, and we're like, oh, well, it's a steal. And then he's had big plays here or there, but used very sparingly. Used even less this year. And he's practicing on the sideline. That, to me, is a huge signal and sign that the Giants have hope. God damn it. I said I wasn't going to do it. I said I wasn't going to do this. And yet here we are. Here we frickin' are. But that to me, him practicing on the sideline to block a field goal, after like not obviously not having the kind of career that he would want, thinking that things would change with the Giants and they haven't. And then he comes through in the clutch, hops over the center, which you're allowed to do from a standing position. You can't run up and jump over. So he times it absolutely perfectly. And there's no shot he couldn't block that field goal. That fucking ball hit him in the almost hit him in the tummy. Hit him in the sternum. It was so blocked. It was not like he got a piece of it. He used his like torso to block the field goal. And then Bryce Ford-Wheaton, a guy that always gets a lot of press and hype in the preseason and training camp. He's going to make the final 53. And, for the most part is like, okay, he doesn't do a whole lot other than that in the preseason or training camp. He scoops it up and runs it for the touchdown. And instead of kicking the extra, like we kicked the extra point, but as a penalty, and we could go for 2 because you can now go from the 2 to the 1. We decide we're not going to run in a very ultra conservative type way. We're now up 29-20, right? So we're up by 9. There's no real reason to even kick an extra point or to even go for 2, because in either instance, if the kick is blocked and they return it for that's 2 points in their favor. So now it's 29-22. If we go for 2 and again something wacky happens, honestly, put your money on that happening. Then anything positive for the Giants, they could go return it for 2, 29-22. So they're within 7. So it's like, we'll just take a knee. We're up by 9, take a knee. Don't even fucking risk it. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. So we don't even attempt anything. We're up by 9. Win, victory sealed. So special teams comes through. So huge. And the motivation, the mentality, the spirit, the enthusiasm, it's back. And as much as I want to resist it, as much as I told myself, don't get duped by this fucking team and this organization again, here we are. Now your schedule, you kind of are like squinting your eyes, turning your head, tilting your head like, it doesn't look so bad. Like, and we'll talk about the Bengals game in a heartbeat, but I don't know that are you as scared of the Steelers now as you were before? The Panthers, the Bucks, like we could get a win against the Cowboys. I don't know that the Saints or the Ravens or the Falcons, you start to look at some of these games and it's like, nothing's a sure thing. There's nothing. And why we convince ourselves that it would be any different is beyond me. I've failed to wrap my head around it every single NFL season. Every time you think it's going to go a certain way, it just makes a hard left. So, all right. So that's the Giants Seahawks recap. Let's talk Giants Bengals. Sunday Night Football. Bengals are favored by 3.5. Over under is 4.5. I say take the Giants, dude. Take the Giants. And this feels like it's going to be a shootout. I think I think I would still take the over. I wonder what the over is, but I'll take the over on this one. I'll take the Giants on the spread. I'll take the over. I think this is going to be a shootout, and here's why. Well, I'll get to why. First, we'll look at the leaders for the Bengals this year. Obviously, you have Joe Burrow, more than almost 1,400 yards to the air and 12 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 29 catches, 493 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then Chase Brown is their leading rusher, 41 carries, 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. Giants, obviously, Jones is starting to look better and better and better, especially ever since the Vikings game. Neighbors is still our leading receiver. My guess is we should get him back. I think this is I think we should ease him back. I don't see any reason why we need to go like a hog wild and, give him 15 plus targets, 12 targets. I think this is a game where you ease him back. You say, hey, we were onto something in the Seahawks game. Let's continue with that kind of game plan and work Neighbors in here and there. We mentioned it in the Seahawks recap. Singletary was out, but he could be back for this game. I'm fine with resting him again. I think you have something there in Tyrone Tracy. Why rush Singletary back when you know you have a capable backup that can be a workhorse? Last 5 matchups, we've only played 11 games against the Bengals. Bengals lead the all-time series 6-5. There was a stretch of games where the home team always won, and that came to an end 4 years ago. After the Thanksgiving, the 2020 game at Cincinnati, we won 19-17. It was our first win in Cincinnati, our first win for the road team in the head-to-head. Giants defense came up huge. Nico Lalos, do you remember that name? Had a big game. Jones got hurt. Colt McCoy comes in and just manages, game manager. And of course, that following week is when he went into Seattle and got the big win. November 14th, 2016, Giants come out with the 1-point win against Cincinnati. I was at this game. I think this is the last game I ever went to. I think OBJ had 10 catches and a touchdown. He did the Thriller celebration from Michael Jackson. Shep had the go-ahead touchdown early in the fourth quarter, and the defense held on for dear life. That fourth quarter was about as tense and nerve-wracking as it can get for a Giants fan, knowing that we're only up by 1, and that the offense is this year not really a juggernaut, and that that was a concern for most of the season, was like our offense is spotty, and our defense constantly, almost every game, had to hold up towards the end there, and they did. Unlike 2015. In November 11th, 2012, 2 days after my birthday, Bengals just ran all over us. We lost 31-13. Eli was sacked 4 times, threw 2 picks, and Andy Dalton was on fire. The Red Rocket. September 21st, 2008, I was at this game. Giants win 26-23. It was all tied up at 13 going into the fourth quarter when Kevin Boss caught a touchdown with less than 2 minutes left in the game to go ahead to 23-20. And then the Bengals drive down and get a Shane Graham field goal to send it into overtime at the gun. And then the Giants win it on a John Carney field goal in overtime. John Carney, we don't need to go into that. Right? We don't need to go into that. GJ Husmanzada had 12 catches for 146 yards in that game, and Carson Palmer was sacked 6 times. The defense, again, helping us out. And then December, the day after Christmas, 2004, the Giants lost by 1. 23-22 is our second close loss in as many weeks, following the 33-30 loss to the Big Ben and the Steelers at home, which was the first real game that was like the first good Eli game. I mean, you look at his stats from 2004, he only had like 2 or 3 good starts. That Steelers one was like he had an over 100 quarterback rating. I was like, this is the guy. Okay, this is the guy we drafted. This is what we should look forward to and hope for. And then he had kind of a not so great game against Cincinnati as we lose. Steve Christie, former Bill, had 5 field goals for us. And Chad Johnson had the game-winning touchdown from John Kitna with 44 seconds left. John Kitna, notorious Giants killer. Hate that guy. Never want to see him again, and we don't have to, thankfully. So prior to that, in 97, October 26, 1997, the Giants won 29-27. I don't know if you're picking up on a theme here, but we've played each other 11 times. And, I mean, 2 points, 1 point, 3 points, 1 point, 3 points, 5 points, 3 points, 7 points, 2 points. Every game has been a one score. Almost every game, other than maybe 2, has been a 1-possession game, 1-score game. In 97, October 97, we were down 21-10 at halftime. Charles Way had two rushing touchdowns. Tyrone Wheatley had 2 rushing touchdowns. And then the Bengals failed in a 2-point conversion with less than 2 minutes left in the game for us to take it. If they score that, they tie it and probably go into overtime. So we recover the onside kick and come out with the victory. Jeff Blake. Whew. That's who we had to go up against in 97. We won 27-20 in 94. In December of 94, we lost 27-24 in 91. Lose 35-30 and 85. That's when Phil threw for I think it was then franchise record 500 and some odd yards through the air. So yeah, I expect this to be another close game. It's just the way the history goes with these guys in Cincinnati. I expect it to be, it comes down to a field goal. We lose, lose by one, win by one, lose by two, win by two. It's going to be that kind of game. And like I said, I think it's going to be a shootout. Bengals are 1-4, which is not that uncommon for this Cincinnati team under Zach Taylor. They had the season opening loss to the Patriots 16-10, which the Patriots have one of the best defenses in the league. They lose by 1 to the Chiefs at Arrowhead, where people were deeming it Burrowhead. He's now lost there the last 2 times, but always puts on a show there in KC. They lose by 1 there. They lose 38-33 to the Commanders in Cincinnati in what was essentially the Jaden Daniels coming out party, right? Like that's when he's in the national spotlight in prime time and he balls out. He has a deep ball to McLaren for the touchdown, Scary Terry. And that's when I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's for real. And he has continued. I mean, he just demolished the Browns, which it's the Browns. They're, it's a lost season for them, but looked good against the Browns. Looked good against the Cardinals. They had a blowout win against the Cardinals. So the Commanders are for real. And that's something that you have to take that into consideration a little bit if you're a Giants fan. That has to be in a weird way, comforting that the Commanders, we lost to a very good Commanders team and we should have beat them. And they have steamrolled the Cardinals. They steamrolled the Browns. They beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. So, the Commanders are no joke. So now 0-2 is not, okay. I remember when we started 0-2, and even in that video I had about, the history of not just Giants teams that have started 0-2, but NFL teams that have started 0-2. We said, well, this isn't 07, because in 07 we faced the Cowboys and Packers, the top 2 seeds in the NFC in the 2 first weeks, and we got smoked, and then we beat them in the playoffs. Well, now you're starting to see, going into the season, the Vikings and Commanders were not picked to go to the playoffs. Vikings maybe, but they were across the board. Everyone was like, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to be towards the bottom of the league. Vikings are now undefeated, 5-0. Sam Darnold is legit. They have now gone and beaten the 49ers. They've beaten the Jets. They have beaten big, strong, quality teams. So now that Vikings loss doesn't look as bad. And now the Commanders loss, although we should have won, you got to think, wow, we have given them their hardest test thus far. So maybe the 0-2 start, not as bad as we thought. That being said, we should be 4-1. Fuck. So the Bengals, 34-24 win over the Panthers in Carolina. So it's not too impressive, although the Panthers, were feeling themselves after Andy Dalton is now the starter. They're kind of falling back to earth now. And then you have the 41-38 overtime loss to the Ravens at home when the Ravens were basically handing you the game. I think they fumble. Bengals are in field goal range. They miss that. It's blocked or something like that. And they end up losing. Bengals. Ooh, tough luck. Bad luck. And will it continue against the Giants? I sure hope so, dude. The 2023 Bengals, this is what they do. They started 1-3 last year. They finished 9-8, just missed the playoffs. 2022, they start 0-2, 2-3 through their first 5. They end up going to the AFC Championship game. So it's not like I don't say like, oh, the Bengals are 1-4. They suck. It's just like this is what they do. So, we're at home in this game. Yes, I hope so, bro. Yeah, we're at home, and yet the Bengals are still favored by 3.5. Go fuck yourself, Vegas. So we're 0-2 at home. We don't play well at home. Bengals are 1-1 on the road. We're 3-2 versus the spread. It's going to be 4-2. And then Bengals are 2-3 against the spread. The Bengals offense is potent. Is probably the best word to use there. They are 5th in the NFL in points scored per game at 28 per game. And as much as our offenses look better week to week to week, we're still 27th of 32 teams in points scored per game. A little under 18 points per game. So that, and that's what we're talking about. No more field goals. They need to be touchdowns. And that's how you pump those rankings up So the if you're a Bengals fan, that's deceiving. You're like, the Giants offense sucks. Look, they scored, under 18 points per game. But here's where, I said it's going to be a shootout. The Bengals have allowed 29 points per game. It's the second to last in the league, whereas we allow a little under 21 points per game. We're now 11th in the league. So the defense has stepped up big time. Takeaway differential, we're still having some turnover problems. Bengals are 15th in the league. We're 22nd at minus two takeaway differential. Passing yards per game. I think we're going to see a lot of passing yards in this game. We're going to see a lot of passing attempts. Bengals are 5th in passing yards per game at 263 per game. We're actually now 12th. I know, hard to believe. New York Giants are 12th in passing yards per game with 218 per game, and I don't see that changing for the remainder of the year. I think if we can stay at 12th or better, we have a really good shot at the playoffs. Bengals are 28th in rushing yards per game. We're 24th in rushing yards per game. Who knows, now that we're starting to rely more on that gap duo approach with Tyrone Tracy, does that go up? Maybe. Defensive passing yards allowed per game, the Bengals are 19th and we are 15th. Defensive rushing yards per game, Bengals are 30th and we're 12th. So I do believe it's going to be a shootout, but I do think that we come out on top because we have the better rushing attack. I don't think there's anything scary about the Bengals rushing game, ground game. And I think the Giants defense has a newfound level of confidence going up against the Seahawks offense that was pretty decent. I'm not going to go out and say it's a top 5 offense, top 10 offense, but it's definitely league average or better. And I do think that the Giants defense will continue to roll here. Again, because we don't have any major big time injuries. We get Drew Phillips back, Adoree Jackson's back. It looks like you got Cordell Flott has definitely stepped up and is looking better in coverage. So I do think the defense has bought in and they have calibrated and they understand and are communicating and have gelled. And we're going to see, I think we're going to see another good game from them. Is it going to be at the level that the Seahawks game was? Maybe not. But I do think we have another game where it's not going to be necessarily like the Washington game. I think it'll be more in line with like the Cleveland game. But again, I don't think Cincinnati has the level of injuries that Cleveland does. I could be wrong there. So yeah, I fully expect a shootout, and I think we come out on top. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to that last drive. I think either the defense makes a big stand or I think the offense gets the game-winning field goal. Either way, I don't see it being more than a 1-score game difference. And I think this is just another win that builds the confidence. You build the confidence with the win against, I think from the coach's perspective, not from the fan base's perspective, but from the coach's perspective, that loss to the Cowboys, you go into the film room and you say, look at all the good things we did. And I know you're probably down because you think that we should have won, but look at all the good things we did. And if we correct this X, Y, Z, these little things here and there, we can go into Seattle and steal the win. And they did. And I think they can now come back to a MetLife Stadium that hopefully is sold out and is hopefully big time vocal. And now we are able to show the national audience in prime time. I'm not scared of it. We have been scared of national spotlight in prime time, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. We have been scared of that for so long. And I don't think we're scared of that anymore. I know I'm not. I think after what I saw and how the Seahawks game panned out, in years past, we lose that game. The fact that we were pull out the win in that kind of way indicates to me that this season is different. That is different. If we come out, they tie the game on the field goal, we go in overtime and lose. Yep, same old, same old. The fact you get the blocked field goal, you secure the win, and now you're coming home against a Bengals team that is struggling, that doesn't have a great ground game, and that with a defense that has shown that they can contain or bottle up some top-level threats. Justin Jefferson really gash us. CeeDee Lamb had the one big play, maintained a level of control over DK Metcalf. Of course, Lockett gets a couple big gainers, but like we're limiting big plays more. I think Jamar Chase is going to get the bulk of our attention, which you got to worry about T Higgins, right? But and who knows what kind of Bengals team shows up. Because in the post-game press conference, Joe Burrow looked defeated, frustrated, saying we're not a championship team. Now, is that a rallying cry for the locker house and the clubhouse? He goes back in there and he says, I wasn't bullshitting, guys. We look like garbage, and this is not championship level football. And either that is the impetus for them, right? It's a catalyst to drive them and say, you know what? Fuck yeah, you're right. We're better than this. And they step it up. Or is there dissension amongst the ranks? Is it like, oh, look at this asshole saying that we're not a championship team where you're doing XYZ? So, and I think Burrow took a lot of the heat for that as well. And that's probably a reason why you might see after something like that they come together and they come out and put on their best game per full 60 minutes. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be high scoring. I think we come out to win. It's going to be close regardless. If we come out and it's a blowout loss, then it's kind of like, we're back to square one. Kind of like what happened? All that good energy that we carried from the Seattle game is now you don't know where you are. So, brick by brick, right? They're kind of building off of each week. And if you come out of this with a win, that's why I'm thinking like if you come out of this with a win, sure, it's a 1-4 team. Bengals might not go to the playoffs, but it's still the Bengals. Of the teams not making the playoffs, they're among the best, right? You then carry that into the game, the Saquon Barkley revenge game. And if you can come out on our home turf and get a win over the Eagles, you are then looking at a different Giants team that I think gets the respect of the league. You come out and you beat the Bengals on your home turf in prime time. Prime time has always been a bugaboo for us. You're able to do it and showcase that this is not the same old Giants in front of a national audience against the Bengals. That'll be huge. You then take the momentum into the game against Philly, a team that has had our number, but again, it feels like there's a sea change going on in the NFC East. I mean, just look at the fucking Commanders. They were picked to finish last or third, depending on who you ask, and like not having the respect of anyone, thinking like, oh, we'll get to see Jaden Daniels, see what he's made of. And now it's like, now they are legitimately, I mean, they're first in the division. And now you got to think about like, okay, we're now in one of the hardest divisions now in the league, in my opinion, because even though the Eagles and the Cowboys don't look like the same teams of recent history, where like they look like juggernauts, they look like they're just going to run away with the division, they have competition now. The Commanders are not a pushover. The Giants are not a pushover. And I think if we'll find out a lot about this team in the next 2 weeks. Because if you come out of that Bengals game with a win, no matter how ugly it is, and then you come out away from that Philly game with a win, you now set up for a Giants-Steelers prime time game, I think on Monday Night Football. And that will be huge. And I think even if you come away with that with a loss, if it's hard fought and if it's close, and if your offense doesn't crumble under the steel curtain, I mean, Jesus, I watched the Sunday Night Football game, last night, Steelers Cowboys. Cowboys come out with the win, 2016, and it was, they're not. Again, it's a top echelon defense. The Cowboys offense has certainly taken a lot of criticism and heat, but yet was able to make it happen. So it's like, it's not the Steelers. The Steelers aren't invincible, and they have the kind of defense that can carry them into the playoffs and possibly further. But I don't know that offense necessarily scares you. So, if you can go into that Panthers game at 500 or better, look the fuck out, because then you get a bye and then you get to rest and prepare for the Buccaneers at home. So, it's a wacky, wonky season so far. I mean, every season is. But this, I don't know that we've seen a Giants season like this so far. 2020, like the offense was not anything to write home about. Like we have not had. I mean, offensive line. Everyone said this. We have not had an offensive line like this performing at this kind of level in decades. It's been like literally the mid to late 2000s. Even though we went to the Super Bowl in 2011, that was not a great offensive line. We did not. We had like a rushing attack was near the bottom of the league. It was all Eli putting us on his shoulders and carrying us throughout that entire season. And I don't know that 2012 wasn't much better. So yeah, it's been like people are saying since 2009, 2008. I don't even know if you could say 2010. So it's been 15 years at least that we've seen an offensive line like this. And in terms of complementary football, all three units, all three phases, this is the best the Giants have looked. I mean, pick a year, because 2016 we did not have a good offense. 2022, it's like okay, but yeah, it's been a while. All three units coming together like this and looking good-ish. I know the rankings don't necessarily scream that right now, but it's like you got off to a pretty nasty start against Minnesota, but they've been getting better each and every week. So this is the best that I think the fan base has felt about this team in a long time. Crazy to say after that 0-2 start, even after beating the Browns, even after the Cowboys game. All it takes is that one game, crazily enough, because so much can change week to week in the NFL, that now you start to see the window of opportunity is open and is opening every week. The fact that I don't think the Cowboys are world beaters. I don't think the Eagles are world beaters. I mean, the Eagles, I mean, like, it's just wild that people are writing them off. But, that's here. This is where we are. So it's going to, if barring anything crazy happening injury wise, if everyone can stay healthy, you feel good about your prospects. I still do hate the fact that we have to play damn near perfect football to get these wins. Let's get some fucking easy wins. Let's get an easy win. And I don't know that we're going to get an easy win, because looking at the schedule, it's like, it's going to be fucking hard. And the easy win, maybe that easy win does come against Carolina and Germany. And that's it, because every other game, even the Colts game now, that could be a barn burner. I don't know. So that's the Giants Bengals preview. That's the Giants look ahead in terms of the schedule. And that's this Giants episode, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And let's go Big Blue. Adios, muchachos.